Hello, everybody watching us on Facebook. We aren't on Facebook Live tonight with Keep the Ghost Light On due to technical difficulties, but you should be watching this as soon as possible after the show. I'm Steve Stott, and I'm president of the Shellen Players up at the Shellen Playhouse. And I'm here with my co-host, Robin Frome. Say hi, Robin. There he is, raising the roof. And again, we'll be talking to our lovely guests today. We have Shellen Lubin and we have Gabrielle Lakshmi. So we're hearing about acting, we're hearing about dramaturgy, we're hearing about women's theatre, we're hearing about music, we'll hear about all kinds of things tonight, and obviously with a flavour of COVID, which doesn't sound very pleasant, but we'll hear how COVID has been affecting our guests. I usually give you a little bit of news. There isn't really a lot of news, entertainment-wise, related to COVID to talk about this week. I think maybe something else was distracting people over the weekend. Not quite sure what that was. But one fairly positive note that we heard about today was some progress with the development of a vaccine. Obviously, long way to go before that has any impact, but again, any news is good news. So without any more ado, what I shall do is hand over to Robin to introduce our first guest. Robin, over to you.
Oh, it's so great to see both of you. I'm going to start with Shellen. How are you today, Shellen?
I'm good. I'm hopeful. We're very hopeful today.
Good. We don't want any crying. I'm kidding. You can cry if you like. I have, but not on camera. But so Shellen, tell us a bit of your background. We don't have 2 hours for your whole bio, but if you can bring it down a bit, and then let us know how COVID has affected what you've been doing. Go right ahead.
Sure. So I'm a theater and music person and been working professionally as a theater and music person for a lot of years. So I've been, I started out as a singer-songwriter and a director, and over the years, being a theater person, I did more playwriting and more directing of plays. So when I started, I was doing more directing of cabaret acts and musicals. It's all changed over the years and continues to evolve. My mentor in college used to say, change what you do every 7 years. And I think I've kind of followed that in my life, and it keeps life very rich. And I love doing all of the things because not that when I'm doing one, I try to do the others, but when I'm doing one, it's informed by what I've learned from doing all the others. So I think I've grown in all those ways as an artist all these years. And the other major thing I've done all these years is advocacy for women in the arts in various capacities through 2 organizations, the League of Professional Theater Women, which I'm co-president of right now, and the Women in the Arts and Media Coalition, which I've been co-president of and am first vice president of now. And these are both organizations that work for the voice and the visibility and the way we see women in theater and in the coalition in all the arts. And this is a mission of my life. This is what I write about as a songwriter, now as a playwright. These are the projects I'm most excited about directing that really challenge us in the ways that we think. And it's a very exciting time in that even with all the resistance, we're in an influx of time where many people are open to the challenge of their perceptions and the innate biases, the learned biases in so many of our perceptions of the world. This is the thing that I most love to write about, the thing that I most love to direct. All of those years, on top of everything else, I've also been a voice teacher. And that has been a kind of bizarre thing during COVID, because the one thing that has really still not been solved is the issue of latency online. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, it's that slight lag you get on Zoom, which makes it impossible to create music with someone. You can't sing along. If you notice, when you're doing anything and you try to even sing happy birthday, you have a group of people online, it sounds terrible. So voice lessons have been really interesting. But what I did then was at the very beginning of the pandemic, I said, I was a little too depressed about theater, about the state of theater, which I'm sure we're going to get into at some point more. And I said, you know what, this is time to do writing that isn't necessarily playwriting. So I started writing 2 books that I had been meaning to write for many years. So one book is my vocal technique, and I've been writing it chapter by chapter. I'm up to chapter 9. And the other is a book that Sherry Eaker, who is the producer and has been of the Bistro Awards for many, many years. She was the editor of Backstage for many years. They started the Bistro Awards, and I've been directing them for 8 years. She wanted me to write an updated version of the original of Bob Harrington's Cabaret Artist's Handbook, but that was very much written from his perspective as a critic. And so I'm rewriting, it's called the New Cabaret Artist's Handbook. It's available on the Bistro Awards website, and on that I'm up to I think I just finished chapter 10. So I've been doing a lot of writing over this time that wasn't necessarily theater. But then, as it became really clear that we're going to be here for quite a while, I began to really engage with the idea of what does theater mean online? What is the value? What can be accomplished online that's different than live? What can we create that exists online and does not exist better in person? And I've been involved with 2 theater companies who have been exploring that. One is Cosmic Orchid. Liz Amadeo is the producer, and she did a festival called Behind Closed Doors. Each of the plays, 10-minute plays, 2 people on either side of a door. And I wrote one play with my daughter, actually, for that festival, and I directed 3 of the plays in that festival. And then Theater Breaking Through Barriers, which is an extraordinary company in the city, artistic director Nicholas Vaselli, that works at bringing together abled and disabled actors of all, very much with a really strong eye to all kinds of diversity. He put random groups of people together, and a playwright, a director, 3 or 4 actors, and create something that can only exist on Zoom, a Zoom play. So I wrote one play for that festival, directed one play for that festival. These are all available online, and I'm beginning to explore a world of this, because this is where we're going to be living for at least another year. And, you know, theater is my lifeblood. So, but I haven't yet figured out, and I'm interested to hear what Gabby has to say, totally how to do music. Because I live in the live world, live theater, live music, even this, you know, an interview, which is a live, it's happening right now. This is the experience. I don't live in the recorded world. It's not my preference. So there's a rundown of what I've been doing.
Awesome. It's interesting that you're saying that. We just did, Steve produced and I wrote and directed a play that really did work on Zoom between 2 people. And it actually turned out to look like they were Zooming each other. They were, you know, talking to each other on this chat type of thing. And I think it worked out pretty well. It did have a plot. It was semi-interesting in my opinion, and it worked out well. So I'm glad that there's other places out there that are exploring this, because you can. I mean, Steve and I have been saying you can have both. I mean, you know, I heard about so many music festivals now that will do both. You know, when they can. You know, the live stuff and the recorded stuff, and what you can get, and what, you know, all over the world. You know, that type of thing. But I do agree with you about the live stuff is, you know, it's what we're missing, and that's you know, it feeds us, and we have to, and again, writing is the greatest thing that we can do at this point.
Exactly.
So Steve, did you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to pick up on some things that you touched on there, and especially this notion of writing for Zoom or producing for Zoom or for whether it's Zoom, whether it's whatever other virtual environment that you're in. One thing that we have learned over the last few months as we've been doing this show is that there is a belief, as you're expressing, that we can't just take what we put on stage and put it on screen and put it in this environment.
A pale imitation.
Absolutely, and some stuff may work, some stuff may not. I mean, we saw early on in the pandemic when Hamilton, the broadcast of Hamilton happened, and that was because that was filmed specifically to be shown on a screen. It worked very well, and it showed what can be done. But it's a little different to maybe what we're used to, where you maybe have a screen and a camera pointed at the stage, and maybe a couple of close-ups every so often. That tends not to work, and I'm with you on that. Thinking about the music and the cabaret side of things, that sort of made me think. You've got a history from sort of way back of being involved with cabaret.
Yeah, I'm very old.
Yeah. And you say you've come back round to getting a little bit more involved in that in terms of publications that you're writing. It occurred to me that there's an opportunity for cabaret, for variety in this situation, where rather than an extended play or a series of acts brought together who can be remote, maybe something which may have a resurgence.
The issues with cabaret or performing music online, even if somebody is, let's say, has a recorded track, or if they accompany themselves, which I often do, or if they play, if the two people are either sheltered together or appropriately tested, quarantined, whatever, is the issue of immediacy. Now, I realize this is an acting issue, but the reason that we love the live is because there's a quality of intimacy, a quality of connection, a quality of spontaneity, a quality of this moment exists right here, right now, will never have existed before and will never exist again. And unless someone is a consummate actor and a consummate performer, they don't get that quality when they're being recorded. I remember years ago, Joe Jackson, this was an incredible lesson, okay? Joe Jackson, brilliant new wave and jazz artist and recording artist, recorded for 3 nights in the old Roundabout Theater. And he invited us all in. He put all the recording equipment in a truck. We only had to pay $10 a person to be at this concert as long as we shut up. And we weren't allowed to applaud because what he was doing was getting from us the energy of performance so that he could get his best performance, because we were there, but it would be recording quality because of the way it was being done, and there wouldn't be the applause and the cheers and people shouting out, which is what you get in a live recording. It's tricky. It's tricky to get that, and so that's, to me, the biggest issue with doing cabaret or music online. Look, a lot of cabaret artists have problems getting that quality in person, but it's even harder when the audience really isn't there to just do it as if they were.
Yeah, we heard a few weeks back from Jeff Toohey, who's I don't want to do him down by saying he's an up-and-coming artist, because he's fairly established. But he expressed that he's a performance artist, live performance artist, performing for people, and he was quite worried about that aspect just going away. He turned to doing some streaming sessions specifically live streaming sessions where people came in like this together to watch him, and his experience was one of being quite surprised at how that worked, because again, I think that notion of it was completely different to what he was trying to do on stage in front of a crowd, and therefore a different experience and a different, just a different way of performing. He wasn't trying to recreate, 10,000 people on a Zoom session. He was engaging with the fans that wanted to be there. And there we go.
Is that Jeff?
There we go. Let's.
Is Jeff
That's me. From Madrid, it says.
Yeah,
oh my God.
That's Joe Jackson. He walked in. There we go.
From Madrid.
No, it's just Joe Jackson. He's stepping out. Right.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Terribly sorry. Terribly sorry.
No, nothing to be sorry for.
So what we'll do.
Sorry.
What we'll do, Shellen, we'll ask you to shuffle along the coach, and we'll get our next guest up. And don't go anywhere, because we'll continue chatting.
I'm right here.
We'll continue chatting. But Robin, would you like to do the honors?
Of course. Gabby, I've known for a while. I remember casting her, and I said, all right, she's got a small part in this, but I know she's going to be growing into larger parts. That didn't sound right, but into taking larger roles for the future. And she did. She did an amazing job in Jekyll and Hyde. I still remember that wonderful performance that she did. And that, we're going to have Emily on too. Remember, you guys played the same part.
Yes.
And that was an interesting story, but I won't go into that. But and then I think you were in charge of, when we did, there was a lot of non-award shows when you went there, and you were in charge of the orchestra in Scarlet Pimpernel, I believe.
That's right.
I threw you that, and
Yep.
ran with it. It was wonderful. The only problem with that is we only had one night. They only gave us one night because of a storm.
No. Oh, I forgot.
That was a lot of money for costumes, if you know Scarlet Pimpernel. Anyways, and she's been in contact ever since, doing such great stuff in her own music format. And so, Gabby, what have you been doing, and how has this wonderful pandemic affected you?
Wow. Well, that was quite the introduction, first of all. It's so lovely to be here.
We got two people, so.
Yeah. I have mostly been, I recently moved to Brooklyn about 2 years ago. And I was working as a high school choral instructor before that for about 3 years at Holy Cross High School in Waterbury. And I kind of was just like, okay, I think it's time for me to just jump. I need to let go. I love teaching, and I love this, gigging and teaching at the same time. But I was like, I think I just want to move to the city and see what could possibly happen. So I went there with really no plan, at least monetary plan. But I had a lot of faith, and I was like, we're just going to see what happens. And I ended up starting to work in different piano bars there, some restaurants and stuff in Midtown. And it just became this really cool way for me to express myself in a new way, having been classically trained pianist, having been opera singer, and doing all sorts of different things in between. I kind of found my niche there, being able to sing tons of different music, being able to really choose, depending on who's there, what kind of environment you want to create. I found that to be really freeing for me as an artist, rather than working with a band, which I always love to do, but technically usually bands choose a actual genre to be performing a lot of the time, you know what I mean? So I was doing that for a while, and literally right before the pandemic hit, I was really tired. My voice was tired. I was working every 6 nights a week, and I was thrilled to be doing so. It was incredible for me, but I could tell that I needed a break. So it all kind of happened for me at the time where I needed to just I didn't know how to say no to a gig. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to take something that is going really well for you and say, you know, I need to like dial that back. I've always been a little bit too ambitious in those moments. And I don't remember that I also need rest and, you know, recovery time for myself as well. So yeah, obviously work ceased and I was no longer doing anything. And it was very, I know, Shellen, you were saying it's like jarring, you know, it was like, it's just like, well, what about this thing that I've been doing for however many years, you know, you've been doing it, and it's a part of your life and a part of your everyday feeling. And for that to just end so abruptly was very difficult for me to try to manage. Although I knew it was a good time to have a break, it was also, you know, it's a devastating thing to happen to the world. And to not really feel like you can be helpful apart from not doing things. Like for me, my helpful qualities are going to my friends and family's homes and cooking with them, or, you know, hanging out with them. We couldn't do the quality time thing, which is what I feel like I really grasped onto. So no performing and no quality time. It was really, really crazy, and still is. Although we are having a bit more outside time, which is nice. And yeah, I can't say that I was really productive. I feel like I just said, you know what, I was productive with my mental health. I feel like I took time to go inward and I read things, and I was creative in different ways that I didn't feel like I needed to do for money. You know, like I was like, I always think, okay, I'm doing a gig, I'm going to make money, I'm going to survive. That was kind of the mentality I started getting. And I was like, well, why am I doing that? That's not why I started performing. Like it was never about that. And if my performances, if I hope for them to maintain authenticity, I have to find wherever that was before I created this whole, you know, transformation. And that's okay. You know, when we're living day to day, it's hard to remember that all the time. But I think that's kind of what I felt when we were all in quarantine, and we all went to Wisconsin, by the way. So I was in the middle of, I was spending time with my new fiance and his sister and her husband. So I was not even in my own environment. So I was really just like in a space where I could really give myself a clean slate and do some healing things. And that's kind of where I'm at now. The gigs I have opportunities to be performing, and I'm doing so as safely as possible. Although I find some of these opportunities not so safe, and it's been hard, but important for me to turn those opportunities down that I don't think are appropriate at this time. Which is, again, so against, you know, it's against our human nature to do that. But it's a learning curve for everybody. And yeah, I'm hoping I have an original project called The Tell, and we haven't released music in quite a while because I was so wrapped up in just like the day-to-day live performance, which was amazing. But now I'm having a bit more time to be in the studio, which is in my house, which is lucky.
That's great. I was going to ask if you had the facilities to do that in, or whether you were going to other places to do that. But that idea of the sort of the mental health space, sort of enforced as it was, again, we've kind of heard that a few times as well. That there's an opportunity for reflection, and an opportunity for taking stock, as well as an opportunity for extra creativity, and for, you know, looking for what you really want to do next. So I applaud you for seeing it that way, and for seeing that, you know, not producing is still a good place to be. And I think, Robin, you would agree that our guests have been overwhelmingly positive in terms of using the time to do what they feel is important to them. So I do applaud you on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, and I agree. And I like the mental health break is wonderful.
Yeah.
Which I needed as well.
Sure.
But not this long, but
Well,
we gotta shorten it a bit here.
But we're here, so you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure it out.
If you're gonna do it, you gotta do it. Yeah.
If you personally, or if you knew people that were, I've asked this before, that were so put off by this. I mean, but the restrictions, you know, is just shut Broadway down. It shut these other places down and all over the place. And did it sour your wanting to continue in the performing arts? And did you know of anybody that it did sour that they'll just stop, they're going to sell insurance or they're going to do real estate, and just, you know, got incredibly disgusted with the whole thing? I don't know if you knew anybody.
Yeah. I would say that the bulk of the people that I work with have been trying to, I don't necessarily think that they're choosing other occupations for any reason other than necessity at this point. You know, like, it's not that they want to flip and do something else, but my friend was Anna in Frozen in Florida, and now she's not, because it's not happening, you know, like, and she has to find a job because she has no other option. I don't know of anybody that's personally felt like, you know, I'm just quitting this thing I do. I mean, could we ever quit that thing we do? We're theater people, we're music people. It's not going to go away. So
Never.
You know, we'll find another way to do it. You know, we'll write, we'll create in other ways. We'll maybe live stream, but I'm with you, Shellen. I'm not really a live stream person. I can't connect that way. I feel like it's difficult for me to like fill the void of the internet with energy. But yeah, I don't know. I personally don't feel like it soured my hopes. I feel like it was safe, and you know, safety is the priority. We can't be putting people's lives at risk for these types of things. It's frustrating for sure, but I can't say that, you know, it's
in a way it's a trick question, because I wanted you to say that.
Well,
and
everybody, it's what we've been hearing. It's exactly what we've been hearing.
That's exactly what we've been hearing.
Yeah.
It's just like nobody.
Wow, I was like, oh, who would say that?
Yeah, and in a short while, he'll ask Shellen about he'll ask Shellen the union question as well, to see if we can get anybody to bash the union. And we had no one bashing the unions yet, but we'll talk more about that later. But the it interests me that move you made to New York, to that sort of piano bar way of life. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but I mean, I don't know a whole lot about that environment. My perception was that was a potentially a stage on a journey to other things that people, that you know, that musicians took, or it was a potentially a side gig, side gig for other things. You sound more as though you've made the conscious choice. You found something that you really genuinely enjoy doing and feel that you can bring something to. Would that sound accurate?
So it's kind of a hybrid situation, because it's not just me playing piano, but there might be tracks along with it. So it's not as typical as like the piano bar where everybody's gathered around and you're kind of like all singing along. It's more of a performance opportunity, but I think it definitely is for me. I never put together a 4-hour gig that I would do on my own. I was always with a band. I always had other people around me. And I think it just gave me a little bit more of an opening to explore how I would want to perform these types of things in the future and what I'm good at, and really just like more time spent performing and perfecting that part of my craft. So I mean, I think it's really fun. I definitely I was doing it a lot because the opportunity was there, but at this time I'm doing one night a week, and I'm like, that's perfect for me right now, because I think that I can give my energy to that, and I can then put my energy in other things that I enjoy. I also DJ, and I really love doing that, but I love the idea of a hybrid, DJ and vocal performance, and just that's, I think, what the piano bar has given me, the creativity and the opportunity to try to navigate something new that hasn't been done before, or something like that.
Gabby, I have a question. Those piano bars and those gigs, are they closed completely?
So they were up until September 30th. There's one restaurant. It's a restaurant called Mastro's Steakhouse, and it's in Midtown. And it's the it's open at 25% capacity, and they offered us our work back at a pay cut. And I have to be honest with you, it's been very difficult to say no, which I know I have to at this point because cases are rising and it's clear that it's an unsafe predicament now, because it's indoors.
Yes.
And that's just, you know, and it's frustrating because as somebody that works, you know, I want to continue doing the thing that I love to do, but you have to kind of figure out what you consider okay with your own, I don't know, choices.
We've certainly had the same you know, same kind of discussions,
Yeah.
and even up in Sherman at the Sherman Playhouse, it became obvious that, you know, we just couldn't do shows. Very quickly became obvious that we wouldn't be doing shows for a while, but as the situation has changed and we moved up to phase 3, I think, and now we're sliding back to phase 2 in Connecticut. But phase 3, we thought, oh great, phase 3, the opening up capacity and whatever indoors, but then we worked out that you know, for our little playhouse, that still meant, you know, okay, we could maybe squeeze in about 34 people, which, you know, that may work out economically, but then the plays we'd have to choose would have to be socially distanced. You know, anything that we put on would have to, and it wouldn't be the same. Right. It wouldn't be the same experience for people, and I can imagine that, you know, even in a restaurant or a bar with 25 people, it's not the same.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a different experience completely, especially if you are planning a 4-hour set to please everybody. You know, that must be a challenge. Certainly,
but you know, as we all know, we're creative thinkers. Yep. So it's been an opportunity for me to spend more time like reading the room and observing more. And that's kind of the way I've looked at it. It's like, well, let's see who's here and what they might like, and then I'll try a few things out. I think that's the fun part. And I feel like I still get to connect to people in a way, even though we can't, you know, talk face to face. I can't ask them things, you know, specifically, but you know, I don't know, trying to still communicate that I'm listening to them, even though they're not telling me anything.
Well, I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated. Yeah, I can ask you questions about this all night, because, as I say, it's not an area of performance that frankly I've ever really given a great deal of thought to. I'd love going into bars where there's someone playing the piano, but more often than not, it's ambience. It's background. It's not the performance. Right. So I'm fascinated. You know, maybe we can have you on again. And we'll talk even more about it. And anyway, Robin will shoot me for that. But
Gabby, so they're all the 25% people. They all have masks on, right?
Not when they're eating.
Okay, so are you able to read their expressions? I mean, I would think that if you looked out there and it was a sea of masks, all you see is the eyes. I don't know if that affects how you perceive.
No, I certainly wouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. It's definitely it's unique. I'm just trying to find the positivity and you know make them happy, because they're doing something that they're hoping to get a positive experience from, and
they could be smiling under those masks.
You can see the smile in the eyes. I still smile at people and I forget. I'm just like, okay, do you see this?
Yeah, I'm the same. You give someone a smile and you probably look a bit creepy. Probably give them a bit of a stink eye. But I mean, it's I say I'm fascinated to hear about that type of performance. We've heard from lots of people over the weeks we've been doing this of large scale performances and the effects on that and how they're feeling about not being able to do large scale performances. We've heard from people who are just so down about the fact that they can't perform, but then are lifting themselves out with writing or with finding other ways to perform. So I'd like to sort of bring Shellen back into the conversation here, because last week we had our technical special, our tech special, and what was interesting there was we did have some chat about what technically is necessary to try and put on performances, including music performances. And so I encourage you to go back and look at last week and some of the ones we've had before, where people have been trying to get that kind of performance out there. Whether it's successful or not is another matter.
What?
Whether it's been successful for everybody is a different matter, but certainly the notion of latency.
Exactly. I've heard about Jam Kazaa, which is supposed to be one, like the least latency issued. So I want to check that out. I also am, for the first time in my life, I've resisted buying a Mac, because Mac has the best music recording capability and functionality. So I am going to get one, and I'm considering putting together some kind of small recording studio, even though every bone in my body is fighting it, because I love doing everything live. But the quality is important, and I also can't stand when, you know, things that are supposed to be seen can't be seen, things that are supposed to be heard aren't clear, when the stupid phone rings or the dropouts or the, you know, it makes me nuts. So, so I keep working at finding ways, the best technical ways. The first thing that I want to say about anybody who's doing anything online is you've got to have a great stage manager, and it's got to be a stage manager who's learned how to transfer you know, still all the skills that a good stage manager has, plus, you know, what is now needed to do these things online. And the more people that you have who are technically adept, and the more redundancy, that's the other big thing. Whenever I do something, I have multiple devices, so that if something fails, I can go right to another one. And so, and even backups of, now we're doing a big event this Saturday, and we're recording the rehearsal and cutting the people speaking, so that just in case one of them loses internet, we still have the ability to put them right in there. But I have to say, talking about what you can do on Zoom, we're doing a celebration this Saturday from the Women in the Arts and Media Coalition of this amazing woman, Martha Richards, out of California now, who has worked with women worldwide. And we have people who are going to be at this event doing tribute to her from Africa, from Europe, from, you know, it's fabulous, because that's something you can't do live, because you would have to fly them all in. So I'm trying to do things online that are different and are better in that way than what we could, you know, so that you don't feel like you're missing something. Like the play that I just wrote for that, for Theater Breaking Through Barriers, what I did was played with the notion of what would happen if we could trip time with Zoom the way we trip space. And I ended up doing this Zoom thing where someone trips in from the same place but 5 years earlier. And then, just in case you go watch it, I don't want to tell you what the last one is, but it worked with playing with, but it all took place on Zoom.
Right.
But it wasn't just people like us sitting and talking on Zoom. It was a play.
Yes.
And those ideas excite me. So I'm finally getting excited to be in this world and see what it can do. One of the things that turned it for me was someone making the equivalent of Playhouse 90, of live theater recorded, which did have an immediacy that was different from even, let's say, a recording of Hamilton. There was something, it was happening in real time. If someone made a mistake, it was in there. It had a danger. That's one of the things we love about theater and music and live music is danger, the danger of everything being live, including like this conversation. Absolutely. That's great stuff.
Absolutely. Well, we had the same situation with the play that Robin wrote, the Little Desktop
I have to
play.
go watch it.
Yes, it's up there. It's up there on Facebook on our page, and
Good.
we will be releasing it onto YouTube and pushing it a bit more. And this was the Sherman players' first foray into anything like this. So I was, I was quite cagey about it. I know Robin, for a number of years, and I know the stuff that he does, and I'd seen a variation of this play done a couple of years ago, so I knew the play worked. Would it work technically? I wasn't too worried about the performances. I was worried about the technical aspect of it. So we said, okay, well, we won't be live, but we'll do it on Zoom, and we'll record it, and then but then it rapidly came to me that, yeah, we're doing it on Zoom, but there's no way to edit that. There's no clean way to edit that play. It was a one act, and it was a two-hander, and it was a dialogue virtually all the way through. There's I can't think of any place, Robin, in there where there would have been a clean place to splice, or if someone messes up, you can go. There wasn't anywhere to go back to. So that for me was quite scary. And yes, if you watch the thing, you'll see there's maybe a couple of little sound issues, just minor sound issues, but you may spot them, where the voice drops for a second, and maybe you'll spot the actors are occasionally. You see the thinking from time to time as they're thinking, what do I say next? But it absolutely doesn't take away from the fact that you feel you are watching a live performance. So in that sense, it worked, because we couldn't sanitize it, we couldn't clean it up. Much as I would have loved to have scrubbed it and polished it and had each image high definition, rather than one not so high definition, and one that was on a PC camera and one that was on an iPad camera. So crisp. I'd have loved to have fantastic, wonderful, sexy pictures, but it was never going to be, and it benefited, I think, from that. I think it benefited from that format. So if we keep that in mind and don't strive for perfection,
but I think
when we know we can't get it, then I think we'll work.
Right, and as I've been saying before, and I think Steve agreed with this too, it looked like it's two women. One woman was speaking to another woman through her Zoom. It wasn't a play that was being Zoomed. It was an actual, that type of
it was a conversation.
Yeah, conversation.
Yeah, they weren't meant to be in the same. They weren't meant to be in the same room or the same space, were they, Robin? They would, and in fact, without giving too much away, one was really in the ether. One was in her own firmament, while the other was very, very definitely on Earth. But definitely watch it. It's well worth watching.
And I'll watch that conversation too about the tech.
Yes, do it. I mean, that's quite a long show, but it's an interesting one, and it gives you a real flavour for how tech has been affected, and some of the things that are coming out of this.
And you should watch it because Donnie Gamsdrager is perfection in it.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
I want to pick up on something else that was said earlier, and that's this kind of comes back to the mental health bit, and comes back to the time you've now got, or you've had, and as we can see, you still will have for the next number of months, to focus on other things that are important, and especially the social issues that were really coming to some kind of pinnacle when COVID hit. whether we're talking about gender equality, whether we're talking about accessibility to theatre, whether we're talking about Black Lives Matter and you know, anti-discriminatory actions. That was on a, you know, a fairly steep upward rise when the pandemic hit. Do you feel that, or how do you feel about where that has gone since the pandemic hit, and on whether or not there's an opportunity in this to come out in a different place?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody who'll speak.
Okay, well, I can throw something in. So I also write a piece every Monday morning, and this I've been doing for over 20 years, called the Monday Morning Quote. It's online, it's on Facebook, it's all over the place. And I take a couple of quotes that I agree with or disagree with, or I think have an interesting relationship to each other, and then I riff on them. And this year, I always get my own internal barometer when I do them every Monday morning. They let me know where I am and where I'm focusing and where I want to go and all of that. And this year, they've all been political. I mean, everything has been political. Whether it's been socio-political or directly political, it's all been political. And that's been a really beautiful thing. And I always get, thank God not everybody writes back to me, but I always get a certain number of responses every week. And that becomes my dialogue with the external world about what's going on. So that's been really great. And then it's interesting, because you asked this question today, and this may be you know, it was different 3 days ago, and it may be different 3 days from now. But this morning, what I pulled out were civil rights marching songs from the 60s. And I put the quotes, freedom is a constant struggle. And what I was writing about this morning was, we've been here before, we've done this before, and people have learned this lesson, fought this lesson, we've felt fallen back before. So that even the falling back, which I know so many of us are so depressed about, the size of the number of people who voted to go backwards. That's always there too. That's all part of the landscape. And not only am I not ready to dance in the streets yet, not until January 20th, because who knows what damage may still be done between now and then, but we must always be vigilant. So my life has been always aware of that need for vigilance. And that need, I guess the thing that I'm most aware of right now in this very moment is how everybody always paints the people who are working for change with this brush of, you're not doing it nicely enough, you're not doing it in a way that's respectful enough, in a way, even this morning I'm reading all these things about, you have to listen to those 70 million people. Nobody said, over half the country voted for Hillary Clinton. Republicans, you must pay attention to all those people because they are hurting now. Nobody ever once said to them that. So there is this thing that the forces of retrogression always are given the benefit of the doubt that they have a right to be where they are. And everybody who's working for change gets painted with, you're not doing it the right way, because it's another way of resisting it. So that's where I am today. And I am today in this moment of keeping vigilant through all my work, through the organizational work, through the shows that I write, through the plays I direct, and the plays that I dramaturg, the people that I work with, and I challenge them to go deeper into that character, that female character who's a wife, and what is she thinking and what's going on for her that the playwright may not have thought about. That's just one example. And then also through the Monday morning quotes that I write every week.
I mean, what I've learned about theatre is that that's one of the purposes of theatre, is to challenge,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
not just theatre, but the performing arts in general. You know, and the performing arts is such a broad term that it can encompass all those viewpoints. You know, whether or not those viewpoints are for the status quo, or regression, or sort of moving forward and change. That there should be a place for that. So the notion of the arts as being a lens on reality and on society, I think right now maybe there's an opportunity to develop more things that do cast that light and focus on current issues.
And what's so important about the arts is they make people think, but they make people think by feeling. And sometimes even by feeling in a totally unconscious way. Music, dance, visuals affect us in ways that we don't even necessarily understand, but because of it, it allows us to open to the world in a different way.
That's right. And Gabrielle, as a musician, you mentioned you were you've trained as an opera singer. You know, I can think of no other form that's like opera for you know, for vocally getting the emotion and the feeling of a piece out. And right now, that's something that you can't do. You know, you certainly can't perform to people in that kind of arena. How do you think that might affect the return of that kind of performance? Do you think it can come back, or do you think no? You know, there'll be too much time. There'll be a whole bunch of people who haven't performed for so long that ramping back up to giving that type of performance will work. How do you feel that will work out?
So are you talking in terms of classical music, or just in terms of
really in all music performance, or vocal performance, really?
Yeah.
Like music performance.
I think that we're resilient. Like, the human race is not, you know, we're still here. As Shellen mentioned, we're still fighting for justice, and we're not going to stop doing that. And I know that the most beautiful ways of expressing things like that are through drama, music, art. Like, it's true. The feelings that we need to share, that we, you know, would be better off in a storyline or something. I just finished watching the series called I May Destroy You. And I'm going to mispronounce her name. I think it's Michelle Cohn. And she's an incredible storyteller. She stars in this series, and it's all about real human beings and their visceral lives and relationships, and they're not perfect, and they're just trying to get better. And watching that made me think about, you know, how we all are going to go through trials and tribulations, and we're in a really the craziest thing that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. I've never paid more attention to politics, and I see young people paying attention way more than I certainly did when I was their age, which is really exciting and important, which is not the question you asked, but I wanted to also answer the first one.
You could be a politician.
Good.
There you go.
But the point is I think that, you know, maybe people will find paths that fulfill them more. Maybe they were, you know, performing and they're like, okay, I'm going to try something else that has to do with performance. Who knows? But I think the people that love to do it, they'll get right back to it if they can, if they're able to.
An example for that, this is this show, because we just filled up December with people I have never met in my life before.
Wow.
Because, you know, it is social media, and what you do is do a little trolling. You see who knows who, right? And then it's very positive, though, because you asked that, you see whose friends those people are, and then you try to talk to them, and they all want to do it. It's amazing because I think they want to talk. I think they want to talk about what's going on with them, and they're not necessarily A-listers, that don't have the time. Those people are still doing big stuff, that, whatever they're doing, it's still film or something like that. These are people that could be struggling, that are just trying to make it. They have, it looks like their resumes are amazing, and so at least they can have a shot at talking about what's going on with them, just as we are, so I think that I never would have had thought of this whole thing.
No,
if no pandemic.
No, this has been, as Robbie said, this has been,
yeah,
it's been a success on a number of levels, and I don't want to sort of toot our own horn, but
right.
my feeling it's been a success because Robin and I have had a fantastic time doing these. I don't think we haven't had anybody on who hasn't been fascinating, who hasn't had a story, who hasn't had a different story to last week. We get two educators on different weeks, and we hear different aspects of what they've been involved in. We get musicians, and we hear completely different. In simple terms, they all do the same job, but the experiences are different, and the outlook is different. As I think I said earlier, the one common thread that runs through just about everybody we've spoken to, including reasonably surprisingly the tech folks last week, is hope and positivity. Maybe the tech folks a little more guarded, because on the whole, the nuts and bolts people who, when everything shuts down, they have no more nuts and bolts to deal with. They're not necessarily going to go away and write a book or sing a song and record something, or write so they maybe have more immediately at stake by the shutdown of the performing arts. But even there, Robin, I think we were really surprised at just how resilient, and you kind of hit on it, that if this is what you want to do, if this is the world you want to be in, you'll find a way to be in it. My daughter, when we were doing the college round a few years ago, she wanted to go to a performing arts college, and we spoke to, we had the sort of panel of lecturers and professors and head of drama this and theatre, with a crowd of nervous parents all asking exactly the same questions they've been asked 10 or 12 times. And obviously one of the questions that came out was, well, what guarantee is that my child will have a job? We hear about it being overcrowded, we hear about it being being so difficult to earn any money, and the best answer I think we got on any of these college visits was if you want to be involved in this profession, in this world, you will find a way. It may not be headlining a Broadway show. It may be you're working in a production office somewhere, or you're a dresser, or there may be other things that keep you in that world. And I think that's certainly something we've kind of taken away from these chats. People are determined to stay in this world, determined to still be involved, and it certainly gives me a lot of hope.
Absolutely.
It's a bit of insanity on all our parts here too.
Always.
Yeah, I suppose it's so the triumph of hope over reality. But when things happen, but even then,
I think we were insane to start off in the first place.
But hope and fear are equally illusions. So we might as well operate from a place of hope.
Yeah.
That is an absolutely wonderful thing to say, and that is going on the Facebook page when I post this. That could have been scripted for us. So thank you very much, Shellen. I think we as with most of these shows, we could talk all night and chat all night, even if it was only about piano bar experiences. But we've
got a lot of stories.
But we've come to the end of our time on the show. So thank you so much, Shellen and Gabrielle. Fascinating chats as always, and keep on doing what you do. Stay positive. And we'd love to have you back on the show in the future to see how things have gone, see how things have developed, and what the world looks like as we navigate through COVID. So thank you very much. So all that's left really is for us to say goodbye. So we'll be back same time next week, hopefully on Facebook Live. But if not, we'll be following up with a recorded show as this one is. Hopefully, this is as immediate as a real live show. I hope it is. If not, let me know.
Absolutely.
But
thank you so much.
Yeah. So all that's left is for me to say thank you to our guests and Robin. Say goodbye, Robin.
Say goodbye, Robin.
Oh, he's got one line and he always gets it wrong. So goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye bye now.
Bye.
Bye.